Welcome, dear brave listener. You're tuning in to Careful TV, and I'm truly grateful you're here. Whether you're tuning in during the day or late at night, thank you for choosing to spend a part of your time with me. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and means more than you know. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, what brought you here, or even what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Your support keeps this channel going, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's get into today's horror story. My mom had me when she was just 19, and by the time I was 5, it was clear she wasn't built for raising a kid. She bounced between apartments, always chasing a new boyfriend or job or version of herself, and I guess at some point she realized she couldn't drag me through it anymore. So she dropped me off at my uncle's place in northern Indiana, just for the summer, she said. That summer turned into a few years. Uncle Trey wasn't really my uncle. He was my mom's cousin and a single dad himself after his girlfriend left with nothing but a post-it note on the fridge. He had a little boy named Elijah who was a year older than me, and the two of us shared a room in his 2-bedroom rental just outside of Fort Wayne. I was the quiet one between us, more of a coloring books and blankets type, while Elijah had endless energy and a growing collection of broken toy cars. My name's Nathan. I was 6 when this happened. It was a cloudy Tuesday, I remember that, because Trey had Tuesdays off from his job at the plant. It was rare for him to spend time with just me, but Elijah had a dentist appointment with his grandma, and I guess Trey didn't want to leave me home alone. So he asked if I wanted to go with him to grab lunch and pick up some brake fluid from the auto parts store. It wasn't the kind of outing most kids would get excited about, but the second he said we could stop at McDonald's, I threw my shoes on without even asking which location. We went to the one off Lima Road. It was a little worn down compared to the one closer to downtown, but I didn't care. I just wanted my Happy Meal and maybe 10 minutes in the play area before we had to head home. We got there around noon. The dining room wasn't empty, but it was slow, just a handful of people quietly eating alone and an older couple sipping coffee by the window. We ordered and Trey let me pick the booth. I chose one in the middle of the room, close enough to the play area that I could peek at the slides, but far enough that I wouldn't be too close to the bathroom smell. He unwrapped his Big Mac and started scrolling through his phone while I tore into my cheeseburger. I was halfway through it, fries untouched, when a man walked in. I noticed him mostly because he looked off. Not scary at first, just different. He had long, uneven gray hair that curled around his ears, and he was wearing this oversized green jacket even though it was warm outside. His pants were brown corduroy, stained in the way old clothes get when they've been worn too long. He carried a paper grocery bag and kept looking around like he was trying to spot someone, or maybe avoid being seen himself. He ordered a coffee and a small fry and sat at the booth directly across from ours. Not beside us, not diagonal, just directly across, facing me. Trey didn't seem to notice. He was answering work texts or playing Sudoku, but I could feel the man's eyes land on me almost immediately. At first, I tried to ignore it. I looked down at my tray and tried to make the tiny toy car from my Happy Meal roll along the table edge. But every time I looked up, even for a second, the man was staring, not blinking, not smiling, just staring. I shifted in my seat. I didn't know how to describe it, but something about the way he looked at me made my stomach feel hot and tight, like I'd swallowed a balloon. His coffee just sat in front of him, untouched. Then I noticed something under the table. His hands were moving weirdly, low and hidden beneath the surface. I couldn't see everything, but I saw enough. Enough to understand in that moment that something really wrong was happening. We'd had one of those good touch, bad touch talks at school just a few months earlier. They used puppets and bright posters and tried to keep it simple. I remember one line the teacher said that stuck with me. If something feels confusing and you want to tell someone but you feel scared, that means you should tell someone. At that moment, I felt exactly that. Confused, sick, and scared. But I didn't say anything. I was afraid if I said something out loud, the man would hear me. Or worse, that Trey wouldn't believe me. So instead, I slowly pushed my Happy Meal box up to the edge of the table and used it like a wall between me and him. Trey glanced at me and asked if I was done eating. I nodded. He asked if I wanted to go play for a few minutes, and I shook my head. "I just want to go home," I said quietly. Trey raised an eyebrow. "You feeling okay, bud?" I nodded again, even though my eyes were stinging. He finished his soda and told me to throw away our trash. I did, carefully avoiding looking at that man again, though I could still feel his eyes on me like little pins on my skin. We got in the truck and started driving. I didn't say a word, not until we were a few blocks away and I felt like it was finally safe. "Trey?" I said, voice small. He looked over. "Yeah?" There was a man inside. He had his pants down and he was watching me. Trey's grip on the steering wheel tightened, and for a second he didn't say anything. "You sure?" I nodded hard. I saw his hand. He was doing stuff, and I didn't want him to see me look. Trey didn't ask anything else. He just pulled into a parking lot, turned off the truck, and called someone. I sat quietly, holding the Happy Meal toy in my lap with both hands, trying not to cry. He reported what I told him. The woman on the other end asked a few questions. Did I see anything else? Was the man still there? Could we describe him? Trey gave as much detail as I had. He described the man's jacket and hair, and that he'd ordered just coffee and fries. They said they'd send someone right away. We drove home after that. Trey didn't say much, just told me I did the right thing by saying something. When we got inside, he gave me some orange slices and turned on cartoons. He didn't leave my side for the rest of the day. Later that evening, I overheard him talking to someone on the phone. He was pacing in the hallway, voice low but angry. Yeah, they said they got him still sitting in the booth, pants open, plain as day. Then he paused. No, Nate didn't see everything, thank God, but he saw enough. I never went back to that McDonald's again. Not that one. Even now, it's hard to explain why that day sticks with me the way it does. I didn't get hurt. No one touched me. But something in me changed. I learned that adults could be dangerous, even when they smiled, even in broad daylight. I learned that the world wasn't as safe as I thought. And maybe that's what losing a bit of your innocence really looks like. Not some dramatic moment with music swelling in the background, just a slow crawl of realization sitting across from a stranger in a booth sticky with soda, staring down at a half-eaten burger you suddenly can't finish. There's a stretch of Route 52 just outside of Portsmouth, Ohio, where the trees lean too far over the road and the shoulders barely wide enough to pull over. You'd miss it if you weren't looking. Just a blur of overgrowth and rust-colored guardrails. But whenever I pass that way, even now, I can't help but glance toward the tree line. It looks like any other patch of woods out here. But for me, it holds the weight of something I never fully understood. I'm Lena. I was 19 the summer they found her. I worked the morning shift at the McDonald's in Wheelersburg, one of the older stores with that weird 80s tile and a drive-through speaker that always cut out halfway through a sentence. I'd been there since junior year, mostly cashiering, sometimes covering grill when Greg called in sick again. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady money, and it got me out of the house, which, at that time, felt like a win in itself. It was a Tuesday morning in late July. Still early enough that the air was thick with dew, and the only customers were retirees and highway workers grabbing black coffee and sausage biscuits. I was wiping down the lobby booths when I noticed a sheriff cruiser idling outside, engine running. Not uncommon. We got plenty of county folks stopping through, but the driver wasn't moving. He just sat there, staring at the receipt in his hand like he forgot why he came. Eventually, he stepped out and came inside, didn't order anything. Just walked up to the counter and asked if our manager was around. Erica, our shift lead, came over and started talking to him in hushed tones. I kept wiping, pretending not to eavesdrop, but I caught bits and pieces. Off the road, near the old mill, bones, maybe more. Erica nodded a lot and asked if he wanted to see the tapes. That got my attention. Tapes meant the cameras caught something. And the only camera pointed off property was the one facing the side lot, the one with the view of the service road behind the restaurant, the one that pointed toward the woods. I didn't think much more of it that day. Cops came in, asked a few questions, reviewed footage, and left. But by the next morning, everything had changed. They shut down the side entrance and put up yellow tape between the dumpsters and the edge of the tree line. News vans started parking across the street. People who hadn't eaten at our location in years were suddenly dropping by just to check in and see how we were holding up. The rumors spread fast. Bones, a body, some old cold case may be coming to light. Nobody really knew for sure. The next shift, I asked Erica what was going on. She looked tired, said they'd found remains about 60 yards from our rear lot, just past the bend in the trail that led down toward the old paper mill ruins. A maintenance worker doing brush clearing found something strange, like a rolled-up tarp, half buried under leaves and dirt. He thought it was just trash until he kicked it, and a jawbone popped out. Still had teeth. The sheriff's office came back with cadaver dogs. They taped off half the woods behind our store. I remember standing in the back hallway on break, just staring out the little square window in the door, watching figures in gloves and blue uniforms comb through the brush. You'd never guess something like that was out there. But it had been, for a long time. They didn't say much publicly at first, just that the remains were human and likely female. They estimated she'd been there for at least 2 decades, maybe more. No ID, no clothes, just fragments of a belt and some old sneaker soles that had basically turned to dust. The bones were mostly intact. That's what I remember someone saying. Intact, like she hadn't been eaten by animals, like she'd just been left. What got to me the most was how close it was. I'd walked that trail a few times myself, back when we used to sneak out behind the restaurant for smoke breaks. We'd toss rocks into the creek or take pictures for Instagram near the crumbling brick of the mill ruins. We never thought twice about it. The media called her Jane Doe, but locals started calling her Portsmouth Girl. There was something eerie about the way she had just gone unnoticed for so long, like the woods had swallowed her up and decided to give her back 30 years later. People speculated constantly. Some thought she was a runaway. Others were convinced she'd been dumped there after a drug deal gone wrong. A few believed she'd been trafficked. Nobody knew anything for certain, except that she was young, around 25. That's what the forensic anthropologist guessed based on bone density and dental wear. She'd had some orthodontic work, and they released scans of her teeth in case a dentist recognized the pattern. But no one did. I kept thinking about her, not in a morbid way, but just curious. Sad too. What was she doing the day before she died? Did she eat here? Did she pass through town with someone she trusted, only to be left in a shallow ditch behind the play place where kids now ran barefoot in the summer heat? I started to get paranoid. Every shift, I'd glance toward the tree line. Sometimes I'd catch myself checking the walk-in freezer just a little faster than usual. Customers would ask if the murder happened right here, and we'd have to assure them no, it was behind the lot, totally unrelated. But I couldn't help the feeling that we'd all been brushing up against a ghost for years without knowing it. A month later, they released a facial reconstruction image. It was plastered on news stations and pinned up in the break room, right above the labor schedule. It showed a young woman with delicate features, a narrow jaw, high cheekbones. Her expression was blank, but soft, like someone mid-thought. They hoped it would help. But the weeks passed, and nothing came of it. Eventually, the news cycle moved on. The tape came down, the woods reopened, and we all got back to making fries and scrubbing soda syrup from the floor drains. But I never forgot her. 3 years later, when I was already living in Dayton and working as a receptionist, I read the update on my phone while standing in line at the post office. They'd identified her. Her name was Carly Noelle Harmon. She'd been 24 when she disappeared in 1991. Originally from Decatur, Illinois, she'd left home after an argument with her stepfather and hadn't been seen again. Her sister had submitted DNA to a genealogy site and matched to the cold case file through forensic genealogy. The article said she'd been buried in a family plot in Macon County. A service had already been held. Quiet. Small. Just her sister and a few relatives. 30 years after she vanished, they finally brought her home. I sat in my car for 20 minutes after that. I don't know why I cried, but I did. Maybe it was just the finality of it. The closing of something that had hovered open in my mind for so long. There's still no arrest, no leads, no real answers about who took her life and left her behind the restaurant like a discarded wrapper. But at least now she has her name back. And every time I pass that stretch of road, I say it quietly to myself. Carly. Not Portsmouth Girl. Not Jane Doe. Just Carly. I used to work at a McDonald's on the far edge of Eureka, California. One of those quiet highway side ones that mostly saw truckers, graveyard shift nurses, and the same few locals who wandered in for coffee and small talk. It sat right off I-5, tucked next to a beat-up gas station and a Dollar Tree that never fixed its flickering sign, the kind of place that felt like it had been forgotten by time. My name's Wes. I worked nights. I'd been on the closing crew for about 9 months when I met Delaney. She started as a part-time hire in early March, said she was just trying to save up for her EMT certification. She was sharp, quick with the headset, could handle a full dinner rush without missing a beat, and had this calm, level-headed way of dealing with customers that made the rest of us look like amateurs. We worked together almost every shift. I was older, pushing 30 with no real plan and a spotty record, so I never figured someone like her would pay me much mind. But she did. She listened, she laughed asked about my dog, and never once made me feel like I was just the guy scraping gunk out of the fryers. And yeah, we got close. Not like that. Just that rare kind of coworker who makes the night pass a little faster. Someone you'd miss even if nothing ever changed between you. We spent most of our shifts in the drive-thru, especially on weekends. The view from that side of the building faced the slope that ran behind the store, just a long grassy hill that rolled down toward the service road and a stretch of power lines. Beyond that was a Walmart that closed early, leaving its parking lot mostly empty by 10. At night, the hill was just blackness. No lights, no movement. Just shadows. It must have been late June when I first saw the SUV. It wasn't anything dramatic, just a dull gray Suburban parked across the service road, half hidden behind the brush. Nothing illegal about it, just weird. Nobody parked there. No reason to. I figured maybe someone broke down or needed to make a call. The next night, same thing. Same Suburban, same spot, no lights, just sitting there like it was waiting for something. I joked about it to Delaney at first, called it her secret admirer. She laughed, but after a week of the same car in the same spot, the joke stopped being funny. One night, she pulled me aside before clocking in. That SUV, she said. I think I saw it at my apartment last week. That stopped me. She lived about 5 miles south off Minor Street. Not exactly a spot people accidentally drive by. You sure it's the same one? I asked. She nodded. Same crack in the back window. Same plates. That night, we kept a closer watch on the drive-through view. The SUV didn't show, but something about her face stayed different, like she was watching everything a second longer than she used to. Her smiles didn't quite reach her eyes. The following Friday, I came in to find out Delaney had called out. Said she wasn't feeling great. Nothing unusual, but it left me working the drive-through alone, and I hated it, especially since a storm had rolled in, draping everything in a dense fog. It must have been just past midnight when the SUV came back. I noticed it out of the corner of my eye, sitting in the same spot across the hill. No headlights, no engine sound, just there. I stared at it for a minute. I don't know what I was hoping to silhouette, a flash of movement, something to confirm it wasn't just my brain making shadows out of nothing. But then it pulled forward, not toward the road, toward us. It crept over the grass hill, tires slow, deliberate, barely making a sound. I should have said something, called the manager, done anything, but I didn't. I froze. It rolled right past the dumpster, past the closed side entrance, and stopped just shy of the drive-through window. The glass in the SUV was so dark I couldn't see inside. Even up close, there wasn't a reflection, just pure, inky black. I stared at that window and felt something twist in my stomach, deep and cold. I stepped away from the counter. It felt like a full minute passed, maybe more, before the SUV reversed and backed up the hill. No screeching tires, no roar of the engine, just slow retreat into the fog. I told my manager. He brushed it off like I was being dramatic. Told me to focus on my shift and stop watching the parking lot like it owed me something. Delaney came back the next day. She looked tired, worn down in a way I hadn't seen before. When I told her what happened, she didn't say anything right away, just pulled out her phone and deleted a photo off her gallery. "What was that?" I asked. She looked up. A shot I took of the SUV a couple nights ago. Parked by my building again. I sent it to my brother, but he didn't think it was anything. That night, we worked the window together like always. She took the headset. I handled the bags. It felt normal for a while. Too normal. Then just after 1 a.m, I stepped away to use the restroom. I was gone maybe 2 minutes. When I came back, the window was wide open and Delaney was gone. No sign of her headset. Her phone was still on the counter. I ran to the back, yelled for the manager, and we combed the building. Nothing. No exit logs, no back door opened. Just gone. I checked the security feed myself. I had to know. The camera angle by the drive-through window was fuzzy, but it caught the SUV rolling into frame just seconds after I left. It stopped, same as before. Silent, window blacked out. Delaney stepped forward, leaned closer. You could see her hesitate, just for a moment, like she knew something was wrong. And then she was gone. Not pulled, not yanked, just gone. One frame, she's there. The next, the SUV is gone too. I don't have an explanation. Neither do the cops. They interviewed all of us, reviewed the tapes, and then told us the footage was inconclusive. 2 days later, a couple guys in suits showed up and pulled the hard drives. No follow-ups, no press, just silence. The McDonald's shut down a week after that. Technically, staffing issues, but we all knew better. They didn't want anyone asking questions, didn't want anyone staring too long into the dark. It's been almost 8 months. No trace of Delaney, no leads. Her phone history ended the night she disappeared. Her lease was canceled, her car sold. It's like she was erased in real time. I moved out of Eureka. Got a job at a tire shop down near Reading. It's quiet work. Doesn't pay great, but I can breathe out here. Mostly. Still, every time I see an SUV with dark windows, my throat tightens. I check the plates, I try not to stare, but I always watch, just in case. Because I don't think it was random, and I don't think it's over.